Mm-hmm.
Good evening, class. My name is Robert Solosa. I'm going to be refuting Miss Claudia Penna.
Yeah.
Okay. Her argument, which was technological distractions are the primary source for the educational plateau that we're in. First, I want to say that I wouldn't specifically say technological distractions. There's a lot more factors that are affecting the educational plateau, and it's definitely not the primary source. There's things like, like partying, drinking, smoking, the opposite sex, your roommate on YouTube, stuff like that. The last one was mine. So a lot of these things that she's saying aren't really primary sources. The first thing that she said was that texting undermines the student's ability to focus and learn. My take on that is that it's not the sole purpose of a student's inability to learn, and it can also definitely be used for positive outcomes. Like, this is a really small case, but it's a positive thing to use texting as. If you miss class and you text someone, what was the reading assignment, what was the homework for the exam, things like that. Or you can rendezvous with a study partner, go to the library, get some good work in. Secondly, what was wrong with this is that she stated that there was 440 messages a week, and 65% of them are used in the classroom. Okay, but there's really no conclusion based upon that. There's no correlation, or she doesn't describe or detail any correlation between texting and bad grades. She's just giving you the information and hoping that you kind of jump on the train with her. I mean, there's really no conclusion. I mean, personally, I used to text in high school all the time, and I graduated with honors. So I mean, like, it's more of an individual thing, and it seems like she just kind of did a little bit of a hasty generalization there. Her second point was that social networks reduce students' amount of study time. But what doesn't reduce a student's amount of study time? Sleep reduces our amount of study time, but we're not going to get rid of the 7 or 8 hours of sleep that we have every night. A lot of her points about social networking were on Facebook, and she based her information upon a woman's documentation statistics done on Ohio State. This professional was named Erin Karpinski. But I did a little more research based upon this studying that she did, and there's a man named Amit Cowdrey, I believe. He works for a technology and news reviews website, basically just talking about technology and debacles and like opinions and stuff, and his take on them. So he spoke with Erin Karpinski, and she responded to him that she had even looked at the rest of her data, that there was a huge amount of qualitative data that still needed to be examined. So the information that she's reporting here is not all the information that could be used. So it's kind of like tilting towards her side of the argument. There's definitely a lot of information that could also show that it's not, Facebook isn't the only thing that determines someone's lower grade. It's also been stated that personality traits can also be affecting students' grades, and not just Facebook. And her third point, which was entertainment technologies such as iPods keep students from absorbing information that they've been presented with. Her first supporting point is it is recommended to review notes after class while material is still fresh, because it helps students retain the information. Now, this is 100% the truth. As soon as you're done with a lecture or anything that your professor teaches you, you want to go back and read that. But she doesn't really give you like how much time do we have until we lose completely what we've learned. A study done by the Eastern Illinois University states that after 24 hours, you lose about 50% of what you learn. And so, I mean, that definitely gives us a lot of time. So she's saying iPods keep students from absorbing information, but I mean, who walks around for 24 hours listening to their iPod? I mean, as long as you go back and read what you just learned anytime within, 24 hours, or even after class, so that the earlier you do it, the more power to you. But she just kind of focuses like it's just exclusively, if you listen to your iPod after class, you're not going to learn, which is really not the point of like what she would want to be getting across. And basically, just the conclusion on this is, I would just definitely want to ask all of you, when you think technological devices, distract you, it's just how disciplined are you when you're in the workplace or when you're doing your homework or something. I mean, your laptop will be in front of you, but how disciplined are you to just shut that laptop and go to the study room or go into another room? And just ask yourself that question. And that's my presentation, and seriously hope that you guys think about it. Thank you.
All right, Robert, you started off explaining how you're going to be generally arguing alternate causality issues and trying to diminish the significance of this technology on this process. You raise a lot of alternate causality issues, but you've just got a list that you've generated without showing any evidence that they have an impact on student success or failure. I think it's intuitive that some of those things are likely to have an effect, but you, for instance, could make a comparison about how much time students devote to these other pursuits, parties, drinking, any of those other kinds of things, in contrast to texting or to going on Facebook or any of those things that the advocate is talking about. There's got to be some numerical comparison that you can contrast with it to show that your subjects are likely to have the greater impact. The signposting on the first point was clear when you got there, and then it seemed like you had 3 or 4 particular points responding to it, but they were not always declarative claims. Sometimes you just kind of start giving an explanation without telling us where you're going with that point. I thought that there was, like I said, you had some counterclaims without any evidence. You've got your own personal example, and I'm not saying that you aren't somebody who we can trust, but it's not that hard to find somebody who maybe has written about this, who has interviewed people who suggest that they're capable of multitasking. I can text and learn in class at the same time. And one of the things, let's look for some other data to see if this is true. Have the average scores on tests gone down in the last 10 years since all these technologies have become available? It would be nice if we had some comparative data, and I think you're missing an opportunity on that. You have a lot of good presses on the argument, and the presses are the right kind of thing that you want to start with, because those are things that intuitively seem like here's a weakness on the argument, but they seem like the kinds of arguments that you'd give if you were standing up immediately after she spoke and came up with some questions or some things to say, as opposed to, I've had a couple of weeks to research this and dig around and find some information that responds to those points. The one thing that I think does suggest that you did a little bit more in-depth research on that is a question raised about the research that was presented by the Ohio State professor, which suggests that there's more data out there. I don't know that the fact that all the data hasn't been analyzed undermines the legitimacy of using the data in this particular situation. But, for instance, there might be particular issues that they were going to follow up on that would address it more specifically. And if some of that thesis had been talked about in the interview or, for instance, in the original paper, that might have been something that I think you could have gotten and exploited a little bit more. All right, thank you.